Well, welcome to the first ever Brent and the Boys podcast.
Let's go.
I knew I was being watched, so I didn't show up.
Man, I didn't even know you existed.
Oh, that's not true.
All I knew is that maybe I like this guy. The next thing I know, I'm sitting at Starbucks. He's like, we all deal with stuff, and tomorrow's problems are going to be different than today's problems, but you're still going to have problems,
right?
And you're still going to have to make a choice. Am I going to turn to God, or am I going to turn to reacting out of my flesh and all those kinds of things? And
Taylor Swift taking over my football Sunday is really ruining my day, if I'm being honest with you. I don't watch football to watch Taylor Swift, you know what I mean?
Give me any thoughts on that?
spiritual abomination.
Oh, there it is. Spiritual abomination. We need to cut this. This is not good. Start it over. Well, welcome to the one and only, the first ever episode of Brent and the Boys.
Let's go.
So excited. Super pumped for those that are listening and watching for the first time. Clearly, this is your first time because this is our first time as well. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. My name is Garrett, one of the boys here on Brent and the Boys, followed by my good friend Rob Asherbrenner as a boy as well. And then the one and only,
the man,
the reason we're here, the man, you
of
heard
the
it.
boys.
You hear him speaking right now.
That's right.
Brent Sparks, pastor, bishop,
the only face that matters.
the royalist.
Can you hear that clap in the background? I mean, it's
We'll give a little Garrison,
give
give us a little round of applause for
right.
Pastor Brent Sparks. And we just happen to be a couple guys on staff at a church in Groves, Texas. You may have never heard of Groves, Texas, but
Why?
we are here. But we're in Southeast.
Start off with a bang. Starting off with a bang.
You know, Southeast Texas, here we are, and so excited. Pumped
Can't forget
about
the man behind the camera. You can't see him, but super producer, Garrison Strahan.
Super producer.
My man.
Super producer.
Garrison Strahan, roll tide, roll for him. That's the only time I'll ever say that. And but yeah, so excited. Thank you for watching. We're pumped about just the opportunity. Make sure you like and subscribe and all the things. And we're excited to be bringing you content as much as possible. And so, hey, just want to open up and start, give a little introductions to who we are for maybe the people that have never heard of us, clearly, and give some explanation to who we are, what we do, and just kind of dive in. So, Rob, why don't you start us out? Who are you?
Love it. My name's Rob Asherbrenner, and as Garrett said, we all happen to work at a church, and it happens to be Encounter Church, and I've been here for 8 years now, and love it. Love what I do. Have had a myriad of roles, from janitor,
Never heard that word
grass
before.
cutter,
Grass cutter,
young adult pastor, youth pastor, but now I'm the executive pastor and also serving as the campus pastor at our Orange County campus, and love it. Love being here and love being a part of this team.
It's awesome. Pastor Brent.
Brent
Who are you?
Sparks. Well, I'm the pastor of Encounter Church, and of course, we started the church 11 years ago. And previous to that, we were worship pastors for about 25 years, and this is our first senior pastor role. And so, probably get into more about that later. But you know, we started with one family, and we've seen God just do incredible things over the last 11 years. Yeah. So it's been amazing.
It's awesome. And then my name is Garrett. I'm a worship pastor here. Over 3 years been on staff here. I'm actually PB's son-in-law, married the pastor's daughter, his favorite son-in-law, actually. So
you are, and you better remain my favorite son-in-law.
A lot of competition in that category.
I don't know how I would lose this position, but here we are. Got a wife, got a baby girl, and yeah. So we do this thing. We're going to start this thing. It's called Hot Takes, and the first one will start off. It's absolutely stupid. You may have never even tried it before, but do you prefer bottled water or boxed water? And is there a difference?
Ooh. Bottled water or what?
Boxed water. You can buy cartons of water.
Boxed water?
Boxed water. Yeah, you heard it right.
Like in a box?
Yeah, like a box.
I've never seen
I should
water
have brought
in a
one.
box.
Yeah.
I probably should have brought one.
Made it taste it on the spot.
Like, see if you can tell the difference.
Yeah, no.
Which one's better?
Well, why would I don't drink water out of a box?
Major bottle guy myself.
All right.
I'm rocking.
Yeah, I've never had water out of a box, but I don't want to drink. Like, is there plastic inside the box?
You'd have to go
It's
to
like-
800 coffee shops like Garrett does to
That's
find the
the
water.
problem.
We
can talk about
the
coffee.
more hipster the coffee shop, the more boxed the water becomes. You know what I mean?
Hey, we went to a
got
coffee. We went to a coffee shop. We were in
So,
Austin,
yeah.
and Rob was like, "They know I'm not from here."
I literally walk in and I'm like, yeah, they're like, whose dad came to town for the weekend? Like, sticking out like a sore thumb.
We're walking in. I'm sitting there. We're sitting at the bar, and so we're watching them all. Like, it's like hibachi and coffee. I'm sitting there, my just mouth's drooling a little bit because
I've never seen Garrett more. I mean, he was in awe of this barista making coffee.
Bougie.
It was ridiculous.
So bougie.
I want to ask PB, at one point you were trying to become a tea guy.
Yeah.
Could you bring us in a little, what was the inspiration behind the tea?
Because I hate coffee. Pretty much.
Fair point.
I mean, that's it. I hate coffee. So
I have seen you drink coffee maybe
if I'm going to drink something hot, I can drink. And I actually do kind of I've kind of gotten into the flavored tea thing, peppermint and peach and stuff like that.
Peppermint guy here.
I really do like peppermint. I guess I'm not supposed to. Yeah, peppermint. But I've never had boxed water peppermint tea. So
that sounds disgusting.
Here's a question. It has nothing to do with hot takes, but on the topic of bougie and fancy coffee, how has Kate and Garrett's marriage and love of fancy coffee impacted family vacations? Because it had to have made a difference.
Oh, it goes everywhere. He's got a case, a hard case, like we would carry our golf clubs.
It's mad impressive.
Really important.
All the coffee people
He's got like
truly
a case that he would carry any kind of equipment in or something like that. It travels everywhere that we go, so he can do his pour over.
Oh,
that's what he's trying to do. His pour.
Say it again for the people in the back.
Pour over. Yeah, that's what he's got to do. It's not like can't drink Folgers. That's not good enough for them.
Yeah,
it's not.
So
I mean,
it's got to be beans. It's got to be ground up. It's got to be all the stuff. And so
that's true.
Unfortunately, they've gotten my wife into all that stuff.
Yes,
she used to drink Folgers.
Now
wasn't that in your vows or something? Didn't you have something?
I have made coffee for Kate every day.
What a guy.
Sometimes twice.
What a guy.
Kind of get annoyed by it a little bit, especially when she asks for a second one. Sorry, babe. And she's like, "Got one more cup." I'm like, it's a process, but you honor the process, you get a great cup of coffee. That's biblical.
Ooh.
Let it preach.
Okay.
Could just put it in a pot and pour it out.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple.
Just forget about it.
Yeah.
It's ready. Just hit the Keurig
right.
button.
Just make it enough. Just
Whatever.
pour another cup.
All right. I got one more hot take, and this is a little more specific question, but let's talk about pet peeves. Okay. I feel like this is a good conversation to start with. What is your pet peeve? And no relation to anything in particular, nor situation or whatever, just your pet peeve and why. Like, what's your top? Wow, this really just irks me.
Wow.
Give you time to ponder. Give you time to think about it.
What if you have several? That's the problem.
Yeah, I mean, give us
top two or
give us
three.
a few.
Probably the number one pet peeve for me is bad drivers. Bad drivers.
You're actually very hard to follow when it comes to road trips.
Ironic from the guy who doesn't believe in using any of his equipment in his car. Like, hey, you could turn it on, and make it a little easier to follow.
Yeah.
Bad drivers. I like fast. I ride motorcycles, and we like fast. Bad drivers are really big. Another one, I guess, would be crunching. Yeah. I mean,
someone chewing their ice.
Yeah, I like ice and stuff like that, but I'm always conscious if I'm around people not to crunch it. But then you got the people that are just like, or they're eating chips.
Does smacking fall into that too? Like
smacking's kind of, it's not as bad, but just a lot of crunching because when you're just sitting there, it's I don't even know how to say it, but yeah, crunching and bad drivers are probably two of my top.
Yeah, I got to really pray about this list before I share it because I feel like I'm just going to attack my wife for the next 10 minutes because that's who you live
that's
with.
True.
I
would.
Everything I say is about to be directed at I'm trying to think of outside of the bubble.
I apologize. This is you.
Just my marriage. You know what I mean? Like
not to expose everything.
Yeah, I know. It's dangerous.
I'll give you a second.
Okay.
Mine, huge pet peeve. I mean, grew up a pastor's kid, so I feel like my dad ingrained this in me. And PB actually had a little experience of this, but my dad is so early to things that it's just everything that I've ever grown up on. So we went to a conference 2 years ago.
Seats, baby.
My dad was there. He called me. We were an hour before. Doors weren't even open yet. He's like, "Hey, when are you gonna be here?" And I'm like, "Dad, we're still at the hotel." He's like, "All right, well, I got seats front." We were front row. I loved it because I grew up on it. Kate's like, "Do we have to sit up here?" We show up right when the countdown's starting.
I felt important.
He goes ahead. He goes before me. Goes behind. You know what I mean? And so I hate being late. It drives me insane. And but I have to learn that I can't ask Kate when she's ready to leave because it's like World War III. And I just sit patiently, just cross my hands and just wait.
You're such a good husband.
Yeah.
What a guy.
Something like that.
I forgot about that one. That one, pet peeves, was one of mine.
Drives
too.
me well. And I give her a hard time when she interviewed at Ocean Church in Estero. She was late to our first rehearsal, like in her interview weekend. I still give her a hard time about it. She said, "Oh, the time was wrong." I'm like, no, you were late. 20 minutes late.
20 minutes.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, she was late. So drives me wild. I hate being late. I'd rather be 30 minutes late.
I'm putting that in the mental memory so that when she's on the podcast, we can bring that story back up.
Exactly.
That's going to be
That'll be fun.
Great material.
Yeah, we ain't starting at 2 when she gets there. We're starting at 2. Love you, babe. No, she would say she's good to be on time, but she is. She's gotten better.
I'll tell you, certainly this falls under the category of my wife, but it's been magnified now that I have a kid. I can't stand sharing a drink with my family.
Seriously,
dude.
Oh, I forgot about those too. Those are a couple more pet peeves. I won't share any
I learned
kind
that
of.
about you. I didn't know you didn't like
kids backwash like crazy. And if Barrett grabs my drink, I'm just telling you it's done. It's over with. I need a new one. It can be a restaurant. It can be my house. I can have just poured it. If he comes up, grabs it, takes a sip, it's over. And so Kate's the most carefree. Oh, sure, have a sip. Blah, blah, blah. So sharing a drink is top of my pet peeve right now.
Chips and salsa.
Where were we? Yeah, you hate. I did not know this. This was like recent.
Double dippers.
I didn't know that.
But it's not double. It's any dip.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what it is.
Here,
Yeah, it's like kissing you. I'm not doing that.
But the thing is, you're subtle about it because I've never noticed that. Like if someone does something, Brent's like, I'm done. I'm all right.
That's right.
I never noticed that until recently.
Yeah, I'm not a double dipper. If I see somebody double dip, I really just don't like to share at all.
Dips
actually,
at all. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't like to drink after anybody. I don't like to dip salsa after anybody. No.
Oh man,
no. Eden has her own water cup. We went to Jason's the other night. She gets her own water cup.
Oh, Eden wants everything, and I can't share dairy. That's I can share. I'm fine with that, but like dairy. But once you're a kid, I care less. Eden, here's some ice cream. I'll take a bite of the ice cream. Whatever. Sorry, Rob.
No.
Irks you.
I'll give you one more that has nothing to do with my family. It's actually the opposite. My family's probably the only ones I like this from. But if we work at a church, and so I'm not coming at anybody in the church.
You're good,
but this
dog.
is just honest.
You're
Rob's
good.
pet peeve.
Brent and the boys.
Somebody gives me a hug and does the back rub, male or female. I just want to punch them in their face instantaneously.
Tell us more.
Oh, dude, they come up and give you the hug, and when they linger and rub just a little,
don't
you're
touch me.
Please stop. You can leave now. That one gets me. The unnecessary back rub is too much for me.
That's beautiful.
Yeah,
that's right. I hope someone gives you a hug.
Now that we're going, I could keep going.
I had something on my head. I'm like,
we need to cut this right.
We might
that's enough for hot take segment. Thanks. If you're watching this and you want one of your questions answered on hot takes, go ahead and send it to us. DM us. We do have an email. BrentandTheBoys@EncounterOnline.com. You can email us for questions. Oh, you like that?
So professional.
I know. I'm working hard on this. Last thing I want to talk about before we dive into all the other things. Obviously, for those who don't know, we've got some huge college football fans on this table. I married into an Oklahoma Sooner family.
Yes, you did.
My dad would be mad at me because he thinks that I was always a Tennessee Volunteers fan, but that's not the truth.
It's good to be
never. I thought you were going to finish it.
No, can't because they're not very good this year.
They're not.
They
very
were
good.
last year. You got to give them that.
They beat Alabama last year. It's true. But I didn't grow up, with the orange and all the different things until I tell Kay all the time, you did this to me because now I look forward to Saturdays. But all to say, Rob, you're a huge Longhorns
Big
fan.
Longhorn fan.
And we're Sooners fans, and obviously the Oklahoma Sooners lost this week. Just want to get y'all's, thoughts on, the future ahead. And
first of all, I just want to say, welcome to the college football family.
Thank you.
It's
I
life
love
is
it.
better to me whenever you have something to look forward to in the fall on a Saturday.
I agree.
So that's just across the board.
I'm from Tennessee Titans, love them. Great day yesterday. But they have sucked for a long time. They have been really bad. So anyways, I love college football now. But
yeah, no, for me, any Saturday where Oklahoma loses and Texas wins is a great Saturday.
And
So
vice
I had a
versa.
great Saturday.
Yeah. This week, 2 weeks ago, though, you were not having a great
I've
Saturday.
recently had some short-term memory problems.
Yeah,
and
How did you feel about
That's
the OU
amazing.
Texas game 2 weeks ago?
What happened? I don't remember.
34-30?
Isn't that
You don't have to
amazing?
bring up last year. We
I
didn't
have
a
long-term
quarterback.
memory. I remember 49-0 a year ago, but that's
Without a quarterback.
fun being a team without a quarterback.
No, you guys won.
Get our
It is what
quarterback,
it
you
is.
get beat. Without our quarterback,
You play Wildcat every play. I feel like they kind of figure out your play pretty
You
fast.
guys had the game of your life, and it was the only game.
It's
just-
always
lie.
that. Yeah, it's always
always
you
the
had the
game.
game of
Interesting.
your life if you
guys
beat
are
Texas.
fighting in the fourth quarter for every game this season. So I mean, it's interesting.
Yeah, we'll see if you get past Kansas State. We'll see.
I'm worried about Texas.
We'll,
Yeah.
Hey, Bedlam, no.
We'll be fine. I ain't worried about it.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Yeah. Yeah, I have no confidence. We got beat by
Voices-
Kansas, man.
voices saying-
Although it is a better Kansas than that beat you, for sure. But we definitely got beat
the fact that Kansas threw their field goal post in the pond outside was
Pretty wild scene. Pretty wild scene.
Haven't beaten
I will
OU.
say, the only thing I will say is I texted Pastor Brent after the game, not to rub it in. All I texted was, "Welcome to the we lost to Kansas club."
Yeah.
It hurts. It hurts. No matter when,
that
it
would
hurts. And so I
It was the only thing I had. I could always say to him, but you lost to Kansas. Now I can't say that. We haven't lost since 1997 to Kansas.
brutal.
and now really
Oh,
where
it
we
was
find
so
ourselves,
bad.
and this will be fun to keep on going in the weeks to come as we do the podcast.
Yeah.
We're fighting. This week's a big week because we were fighting to see if we're both going to make it to the Big 12 championship,
Yeah.
and there's a lot on the line in the next 2 weeks. So.
Oh yeah, we
It's,
just threatened
it's
everything for
not
us.
good. If we don't, it's just not good.
Love it. Anyways, you'll hear more about the football chatter as we move on. But for today, for the first episode, I kind of want to lean in on you a little bit, PB, and just talk about you, your life story. And I think it'd be awesome for all of our viewers, all of our listeners to kind of hear. We call it Brent and the Boys, but obviously you as the lead pastor of the church, I think it'd be just awesome to kind of share your story a little bit, share some life lessons. Obviously, Rob and I will chime in and kind of just ask some questions in regards to that. But I kind of want to open the table, if you will, and say, hey, share a little about your life story, how you got to where you are in the church now. But I know you were a worship pastor before. You had other ideas, but God got a hold of your heart and things changed and you are where you are now. And so kind of just wanted to open it up and kind of start with that to go.
Well, I mean, I grew up in Oklahoma, of course, and born in southwestern Oklahoma, grew up in northeastern Oklahoma. My parents, and of course, this is not a knock against them in any way, because lots of people deal with issues, and they had a very rough season, and they couldn't decide if they wanted to be married or not. And so my sister and I actually lived with my grandparents for quite a while, and as kids. And so growing up as kids, my grandparents would always really instill in us prayer and stuff like that. We'd pray every night before we went to bed, and I would listen to them cry out to God. Of course, I was bored out of my mind, didn't want to be there, just like any kid, but didn't really realize what they were instilling in me. And so fast forward to my parents decided to get back together. We moved to Tahlequah, which is northeastern Oklahoma, and same scenario. They just couldn't work it out. Eventually, they both moved out. They went to apartments, and I ended up staying in the house, and was 15 years old. And so at 15, I started making a lot of decisions that shouldn't be made. And, and so I guess I was 17 and a friend and I had been out drinking, and he actually passed out behind the wheel of the car. We were coming down the mountain. He lived on top of this mountain. We were coming down the mountain, and he passed out, and I was able to get the car stopped, but then I really shouldn't have been driving either, but we got out on old Highway 10 out there, coming around this corner, and I hydroplaned out, and there's no reason why I shouldn't have hit this tree. In fact, I remember throwing up my hands and screaming because I looked down the speedometer. It was 55 miles an hour. I remember that, and I threw up my hands, screaming, thinking we're fixing to wrap around the tree. And we stopped. I got out, walked around. I was, I didn't know what had happened. I thought, am I dead? What's up? Walked around to the front of the car, and the car was that far from the tree. And it was the first time God ever spoke to me to where it really was, I don't know if I'm going to tell you that it was audible, but it certainly felt audible.
Yeah.
And he said to me, Brent, I spared your life this time. He said, I won't next time. And So it was so clear to me. And so I thought, okay, I better get this right. Cause it goes back to what we talk about in Proverbs, train up a child the way they should go. And even though they depart from it, they'll come back to it. And I knew in my heart what was right. And that moment right there changed everything for me, because then I decided, you know what, I've got to get my life. I can't risk this, because I knew enough of what had been put inside of me that there is a heaven and a hell. Right. I knew that. And I knew that had I died in that moment, I would have gone to hell. Right. There was no question. And so it really woke me up. And so as I really decided at that point to commit my life to Christ, I started abandoning all the relationships that I had that were, pulling me the wrong way. Exactly what we talk about, with people in our church. You've got to get rid of relationships and environments. And so I began to do that and really delve myself into church, and went to an AG church there in Tahlequah, and was surrounded by some good people. And no matter what I would do, it didn't necessarily stop everything that I was doing on Fridays and Saturdays, but even previous to that, quite honestly, before that happened, I would still go to church on Sundays, because I was just kind of raised, go to church. Right. I'd go to church scared most of the time, because I thought somebody's going to come up and, we had this lady, Pat Brassfield, in our church, that God seemed to talk to her about all of us all the time. And, and she'd come up and, she'd like read your mail and, and all those kinds of things. But, I still would go on Sundays. And then one night coming back, it was a Christmas, actually Christmas time. It was that same year at Christmas. My dad and I were driving back, I think from Marlow, which was southwestern Oklahoma, from my grandparents' house. And we were between Fort Gibson and Tahlequah. And all of a sudden, everything became scale model. You know what I mean by that, scale model? So like if you're building a complex or something, you'll scale it out, and you can look at it, maybe as big as this table kind of thing. And so everything was scale model. I mean, it was fake. And I'm rubbing my eyes. Of course, at that time, we only had cassette players. We didn't have CDs yet even. And so Michael W. Smith, of course, this is in his heyday. So Michael W. Smith is in the cassette player. I remember that. And I'm looking out the window, and everything is scale model. And I'm rubbing my eyes, and I'm thinking, what is going on? And immediately God spoke to me again. And again, audible or not, I'm going to tell you it was, because it was that real to me. He said, Brent, he said, everything in this world is fake. He said, I'm calling you to take me to the world. Take me to the world. And then boom, everything went right back to normal.
Did you instantly start singing My Place in the World?
My Place in the World. I think that's probably what was playing right then, actually. Guarantee. But instantly, it was crazy, because all the trees went everything went right back to normal. And so, I had no plans to do that. Didn't want to go into ministry. I was like, I literally thought, not a chance, man. I'm going to Oklahoma. I'm going to become a computer programmer, because that's where the money's at, because back then, of course, everything was just kicking off. And so I decided that's what I'm doing. I'm going to, be a computer programmer. And so I kind of walked away from it a little bit. And really, it was my first prophetic experience was on a Sunday night. I think it was the following Sunday or the Sunday after that. I went to church at Sunday. Of course, back then you still had Sunday night church, and my pastor, his name was Jim Franklin. He called me out up front, and I'd never had anyone do anything like that. And he told me exactly what had happened. And he said, God's called you to the ministry, and kind of went down this line. And so I was like, wow. And so at that point, I knew, something was up, and that I needed to really take a look at this, and so that was really, it was really the pursuit of it, on that side. But, the main thing was, God was always there, and he was just waiting for me to turn to him. Yeah. We all have those moments. I had a lot of moments in this where, I was really discouraged, and before, this is really before all the things I just talked about, but. Yeah. There was a time I contemplated suicide, as a 16-year-old kid dealing with a lot of stuff, and even to the point where I was dumb enough to stick a .357 in my mouth, and so, But just literally thinking about it, just, and of course I think it's just the enemy, what he does to everybody. He's trying to deceive you and make you think that there's no future and no hope and, and all those kinds of things. So, but from there, of course, I went to Bible college and then, Terry and I met and went into ministry, and we're worship pastors, of course, like we said earlier, for about 24, 25 years before we pastored the church. So
how, I think in your story, which is incredible, I think honestly it's the first time I've heard a few more details in it. But for you, how much did you always look back on your grandparents who laid such a foundation? How often did that come to mind when you were growing up and learning and making decisions? Because I feel like obviously that's a foundational piece for you. Mm-hmm. How important was that in those moments, whether you recognized it or not? Speaking to, I think for me, having a baby girl and you having kids as well, the importance of laying that foundation, even if it may not be connecting or they may not see it as connecting to you just yet when you were younger. I mean, how often did you think about those moments with your grandparents?
I still think about them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm 55 years old, and there are still times I have moments where I go back to that time. Yeah. And I remember saying, I think it was it was at my grandmother's funeral, which would have been, I think, around 2011. And I brought all of that up, and I said this at her funeral, and I think I've said it too before, but I didn't realize, of course, as a child, what was going on. What they were doing is they were instilling a legacy. And Stephanie, who's my sister, my cousin Shelly, and myself, there's only three of us on that side of the family, as far as grandkids go.
Right.
And so all three of us, we were there all the time, and they were instilling a legacy inside of us that we didn't even understand. Right. I didn't understand what was going on, and I think this is why I even like what we did Sunday, this last Sunday. Yeah. We have baby dedication and stuff like that in our church, and we always encourage the parents that, look, you need to understand this is about you, not so much about the children. This is about you making a commitment, that you're going to raise these kids, because these slight things that we don't think really matter. We don't think our kids see, we don't think our kids understand, but even at the youngest ages, I'm telling you, they know when you as a parent go in and sit down and pray with them. Yeah. They know when, hey, we're turning our attention and our focus to God. We're turning our attention and our focus this way. They know and understand there's something different about that. And and that's why it's so important to establish that in them, because I'm telling you, had my grandparents not established that in me, I don't know that I would be sitting here on the side of the table today. Wow. I don't know that I'd be here, because I could have gone down a much, much different path. Sure. And that's honestly the path that I was on. It was a path of destruction, and I could have gone very easily down another path, but because of that legacy and what was instilled in me and being trained up, that I just knew I've got to come back. There was always that thing, you've got to get back. It's just like I said, no matter what I did on Friday or Saturday, I found myself at church on Sunday morning. Yeah. No matter what it was, I was going to church. So just because of what was instilled in me. So it's really important.
You talk about the shift, obviously, once you had these encounters with God and you feel like God started to speak to you. Here at Encounter, we have a phrase that we've really started to adopt and use in our church, that is "go all in." And as you were telling all that, it literally just hit me like I just want to ask, how did your own version of "go all in," where you start to experience God in a way where you go, I'm gonna chase this and make this a big part of my life. How did that not only happen in your life as you talked about, but how did that become such a big part that now that's literally what we've adopted in our church? Yep. Why is that such a big piece of the puzzle to finally take that big step where you go, I'm done playing games. I'm gonna make God a serious part of my life?
Well, I think until you do that, you really don't understand what God really has for you. Yeah. You don't understand really, who he really is and the great plan that he has, because so many people ride the fence for so long. And basically, we say it this way around here, basically what they want to do is they want all the benefits of what Jesus did for them, but they don't want the commitment that it takes to live that life, right? They still want to live the way they want to live, but they want the benefits. And wouldn't that be great, right? And, but that's, it's just not, it's not the way it's set up to live your best life, right? On that side, and I remember, at 17, when I decided, okay, I'm going all in. And I remember that, and I started abandoning the relationships that I had, that were taking me the wrong place. And I lost a lot of friends. They didn't understand, because I told them, look, I've given my life to Christ. I'm not going to do this anymore. And I remember even one day we're sitting at lunch and I think what we don't understand is how people watch us. And I'll never forget. And I was marked by this day. So for some reason, after I'd kind of made these decisions, people around me knew, hey, he's changed, he's not doing this stuff anymore. And I remember one day, I don't know why I cussed, but I cussed about something. I don't remember why or even what word or words that I said, but I do remember this. I was sitting at lunch with this girl named Tori, and I'll never forget Tori looking at me, and she said, Brent, she said, why were you cussing? I saw that I know you kind of changed, but yet here you are. And it dawned on me. Wow. I thought, wow, I can't, the people are watching. They're watching what God's doing in my life. Right. They're seeing something happen, and to the point to where they're even scrutinizing, what I'm saying. Yeah. And I'm not saying that it's a right thing to do that, but what it does do for somebody that has made a change, you recognize, okay, hey, there's a responsibility that I have here, to live this out in every way that I can, right. And in doing that, not only am I helping myself, but the people around me. And I just think people rob themselves so many times of what God has for them, their best, right. Their best life in God. They rob themselves because they're unwilling to make the choice to say, I'm going to go all in, and or shut all the other voices out. God is always speaking, right? We say that, talk about that, how God is always speaking, and he's always speaking to us as individuals, always. But if we're not hearing him, there's too many other voices going on, too much white noise. And that white noise is there because of our own choices, not because God can't get through to us. It's that he can get through to us if we'll just shut everything else down.
Yeah. I think it kind of reminds me of it's kind of that FOMO, fear of missing out. And we maybe toy with church and Jesus and all this stuff. And then we're like, that looks great, but I also want to kind of keep this close with me as well. But I'm like, if only you knew, like you said, if only you knew what was on the other side of your yes to Jesus. Yep. If you only knew what it would look like and the benefit of going all in rather than being lukewarm, being in the world 1 foot and being in the world, or being in the church or whatever that looks like. And so, I think to myself as well, because even in high school, we were talking about this the other day of I was the popular Christian kid. So, I led worship at, I remember the big moment that marked me is I led worship for a open mic, so we called it talent show. And we preached Jesus, and people left the school, called, got in trouble, all the different things. But for me, I just realized I'm no, I want to go all in, and I refuse to be of the world and in the church world. And I feel like that was a defining moment for me. Being and people would walk up to me and they would cuss in my face because they knew that's just not what I do, and they think it was a joke. And I'd be like, hey, this is just a decision I've made, and that my actions are going to show that, rather than if I'm going to make a decision on the inside, it needs to show on the outside of what God's doing to me. And I would just,
bro, you were 5 years too early. If that happens 5 years later, Facebook takes off, and you're the poster child for Christian Facebook. Yeah. Can you believe that these kids led worship? Oh yeah.
I had a guy share his testimony, and he was sharing it, and he knew his mom was in the room. He's like, she doesn't know that I do drugs. And he's like, I was doing drugs and all this stuff. And his mom's sitting in this, all whatever. But there's something to going all in. And I think maybe talk about the battle, and maybe talk about the benefit of saying yes to Jesus, and not it kind of sounds funny saying it that way, but there's so much more to life if you're living for the Lord.
So much more.
And it's easy to say on this side, but hopefully who we are and our example of who we are would make people be interested to come and be like, hey, what's this Jesus about? Because it should make people ask questions like, hey, what's on your life? What's inside of you? I see something there. Why are you so full of joy in a world that's rough? Why are you so full of peace when there's literal chaos everywhere? Maybe talk about, the battle of, we want to be in the world, we want to be cool like culture, but we'll be secret Christians because it doesn't, some of my friends aren't that way. That makes sense.
I think for us behind the scenes, and even our church may not fully get this. We don't just change things to change things. So we started having a lot of discussions about like if we were going to change our core values or our mission statement or what that would be. And when we ultimately settled on go all in, I think it was in large part because we have over 10 years of experience now here at Encounter Church specifically of story after story of person who we didn't necessarily say the phrase go all in, but who lived out our process. And what we said for years was give us 1 year of your life.
Right.
Now we've just simplified that to, hey, go all in for a year, basically.
Easy.
And what we've seen is story after story. We're so much so that now we do a yearly sermon series called Encounter Stories where we just highlight stories of people who did exactly that, gave us 1 year of their life, attended everything the church has to offer, and the not just the benefit of it, if you will, but really, I've never heard one person say my life is worse off. I've never heard one person say, "Hey, I actually regret doing this."
Right.
Actually, every story and every testimony we hear, I would say, the theme of Encounter Church for the last 12 years is this consistent narrative of I went all in. And God has completely changed my life so much that not only do I not have any regrets, it's impacted me, my marriage, my family, our finances, our health, I can go down the list of different stories and testimonies of incredible things that God has done because people ultimately, I really believe, made one choice that I'm done playing games. I'm crossing that line. And no matter what happens, I'm not going back this way.
Right.
And I think that's kind of become the narrative of the church.
It is. And it's amazing. I mean, just yesterday, I heard, a story of a family in our church where they're at their 1 year mark.
Yeah.
They literally
So cool.
were last year walked out and said, hey, next week's our 1 year mark. and then they come back this week after going to a conference and God just radically messed with them. I mean, in a great, great way, of course. And literally having a conversation honestly before the podcast, and where it's being said to me, this guy was saying, I just never knew. I had a good life, but I didn't know how much better it could get because of God in my life.
Yeah.
And I think that's the story of so many people. A lot of people live good lives, and a lot of people live what the world standard is as good, and they don't understand when Jesus is not involved, it's not your best, but when they get involved, I mean, it was exactly what we say all the time. You can live a good life, but not your best life without God. And it's exactly what he said. He was like, I thought my life was good, but he said it was not near as good or as near as great as it could be without God. And now, I mean, he just, the testimony of him and his wife and, and their family, I mean, it's amazing, but you're right. It is what it really is the theme of our church. And I'm so thankful for that, of the hundreds and hundreds and honestly into the thousands of people at this point, to where their lives have been touched and changed, and they've got a story. They've got a God story in their lives.
Talk about the Wendy story. I think for a lot of people who may not hear the story, but kind of a pivotal moment in Encounter Church where things kind of shifted for you and Terry of like how we do church and what the not the point, but kind of the beauty of what God was doing in the area. Sure. I think that's
kind of the original Encounter
story.
It is the original Encounter story, and so Terry and I, of course, we'd been involved in churches, and this is not critical of any church, but we had been involved in churches that were very introspective, if that makes sense. We're not real outreach churches.
Sure.
We were what. And I don't want anyone to take this as a negative term, but it's kind of the only way to describe it. We were revival oriented churches, and I think revival is good and needed. So I'm not just I'm not being critical on that side, but it was the attitude of God is always going to come. He's not here. He's always going to come. And there's no outreach to people. There, it's all about this emotional experience. Okay. And again, I'm not against any of that. Anybody that knows me knows I love for God to move in the lives of people, but that's really what we were. So honestly, it's kind of what we've been involved in. We think we're going to come in. This is what it's going to be. And for the first year or so, that's really what we were. I mean, we were, just this real, presence-driven place, and we're still presence-driven, just in a little bit different way. But there it was. We didn't care about teaching. You didn't care about preaching. All those kind of things. It was just about the experience.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, the church begins to grow a little bit, and we have this couple come in one Sunday morning, and I knew, that morning God spoke to me, said, I want to deliver people. So I just stepped up, and there were so many people in that service, and it was in the old building. Of course, it only sat about 120 people, I guess 130. And so there were so many people, we could not, we didn't have an altar area. So we would just say, move to the aisle, you know? And so, people would move to the aisle if they wanted prayer. And I saw this couple there in the very back, and they stepped forward, and I thought I'd need to go pray for them. So I had to weave my way back there. So when I go back, I literally pray a 30-second prayer. And it was just, God, you're here to deliver. You said you're going to do it. I don't know what they need, but I ask you to deliver them in Jesus' name, and I'll walk away. And what I didn't know is what God did, of course, in the moment. So the next week, this girl and Wendy and her mom, Becky, come in the back door and with both big smiles on their faces, just telling me the story. And Wendy was, had been addicted to drugs for like 15 years, and God just set her free. And she went home and slept for like 7 days and never had a withdrawal, and, just completely set free. And then she began to tell everybody that she knew about Jesus. And of course, when people are seeing her life, and then all of a sudden we have this influx of lost people that began to come in our church. And if I'm honest with you, I was like, God, what do I do with this?
Wow.
What do I do with lost people? Because I'd never really been a part of a church. It's not that we didn't see people saved, but I'd never been a part of a church where it was like, okay, these people, not only they need to be saved, but they got to be discipled. It's not like, you got to teach these guys. They know nothing, right? And everything changed. And so I go to God in prayer, and he said, this is literally what he said to me. He said, Brent, he said, if you'll give up your preference, he said, if you'll give up your personal preference of ministry, and if you'll do what I'm asking you to do, he said, this church will always grow.
Wow.
And he said, if you'll base it on my presence, but give up your personal preferences and do what I'm asking you to do, I'm going to help you reach the people of this area. And so that's what I did, because my personal preference is we would worship a lot longer, right? We would do a lot, we would do things probably a lot differently for my personal preference, but I knew what God was asking me to do. And it really became focused on still a very presence-driven church, still a supernatural church, still seeing people, still people healed, saved, filled with the Holy Spirit, all these things, all those things happen in our church, just in a different way than what I thought, because we really became focused on the lost, and we really became focused on discipleship. And
I just want to highlight that for a second, because I think that's such a, I think a Christian, or even our church as a whole now, hears that and it's like, well, yeah, you're a church. You're going to, of course, whatever God says you need to do. But I want to just put it in business. That'd be like God telling you, hey, if you'll drop how you think your business should be ran, if you'll change your schedule for your business, invest, how you operate, how you do things, and if you'll change all of that and do things differently, I'll make your business more successful. You'd go, no other business I've ever been a part of does things that way. But you'd go, that's a little out there.
Right.
And I think in the church world, it's like, well, God, of course you did it because you're a pastor. No. I think that's really special, and actually something that, as young pastors, that we're thankful for, that we've got to see at Encounter is, and behind the scenes, obviously, we get more access than maybe the average person does. But I think that's also become kind of the rhythm of our staff at Encounter, is realizing hey, we're going to shift things, do things differently if it means we can reach people.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's become something you've not only embraced for a one-time moment, that's become something that's become very normal for the
everything
we'll shoot anything in the head. We say that all the time right now. We'll shoot anything in the head. We'll do it to change and move forward. We'll kill it, because we're not going to be stuck, on that side. And I think, in the context of what you're saying, Rob, especially with pastors, if somebody's watching, I would just say to you, do not try to cookie cut everything, because I'm so thankful for Highlands. Yeah. I'm so thankful for, Groeschel. I'm so thankful for Bill Johnson and Bethel and all these influences, that these people have had. And quite honestly, we've gleaned from everybody, and there are things about Highlands that we took that, we loved, and we began to fashion and formed it into what we needed to work for us, and all this. So I think you can pull that way, but we're not trying to be Church of the Highlands. We're not trying to be, Bethel. We're not trying to be Life Church. We're not trying to be any church.
Right.
We're trying to be what God's called us to be. And I think if every pastor would approach it, that yes, you can glean from everybody,
absolutely,
but you're not, it's just like, you guys are a little young for this, but those that are old enough, the Pensacola revival, back in the mid 90s. Well, what was everybody trying to do? Everybody was trying to cookie cut that. Everybody tried, and I think the heart behind it is right, because you want what you experienced, but the attitude was, I'm going to go get this and we're going to do it just like that at our church. And it doesn't work that way, because you've got a different group of people that you're trying to reach, and so you got to get God's heart in mind for that location, for that group of people, and what you do, and you got to not care what anybody thinks.
Huge.
Because I have been criticized. I mean, people have said, and I won't even go into all the things they've said about me, and they still say about me, and that's okay. But that's just part of the deal too. When you start having success, and when you start making an impact, for the kingdom. Unfortunately, a lot of people in the kingdom can't celebrate with you when you're seeing God do things, and that's a totally different subject. But you guys know what I'm talking about on that side, and I just think people just have to understand. Look, I'm going to get my mind, God's mind for $10 out here, wherever I'm at, and God's going to help me reach this group of people. And it might be similar to what somebody's doing, but it's probably always going to be different in so many other ways, because it's a different group of people.
Well, I feel like if you would have focused on trying to be like those other places, you would have missed your Wendy opportunity.
No doubt.
Because you were so focused maybe on it. Obviously I wasn't in the room for that, but in other moments you could be like, no, but this is how this place does it, and this is how this person does it, and this, that, and the other. But you're missing out on opportunities of the people that are in your church, or the people that you're around, that you hang out with, because you're too focused on the comparing side of, and I know that's a whole nother conversation of being like, get the comparison game, not only in the church world, but just in the world in general. But you miss out on so much in your own life when you start comparing to other people's stories and other people's way of how they do things. It works great for that area, and they probably have a revelation for that area in that moment, and they have the Lord spoken to them about a certain thing here. But man, what an opportunity that you have if you can keep your eyes on Jesus and run your lane, run your race, and watch God begin to open up opportunities for you to make impact in the places that you're around.
Well, and the coolest thing about it to me, outside of the obviously patting Pastor Brent on the back, and even our church as a whole for becoming this type of church. I think the coolest thing about it is not only would you miss out on the individual moments, but no one reaches more lost people than an all-in new saved Christian.
100%.
And that to me has become like why we went with this mentality of like, we want people to go all in, is because when I look back on the last 12 years of Encounter Church, we've reached more people because one extremely a Wendy, or these crazy stories throughout the years, they give their life to Jesus, go all in, and it literally becomes like the woman at the well. And that story, like Jesus has this incredible moment with her, and then she literally runs into town and tells everybody, you got to come meet this guy. And that's become the story. Like the Wendy's of the world, the Jarrett Romero's of the world have invited more lost people to come experience this Jesus and this freedom that they found than anybody else. And I think that's the thing, is if you'll get out of your own way, let God take over, you're going to reach people that are going to do more in your church than you ever could.
Well, and the common theme for everything, in this sense, for any pastor that's doing it, is just simply this: win the lost. You want your church to grow, win the lost. Because you win the lost, because when they radically get changed, they're going to tell everybody they know, and they're going to come. We had baptisms, this last weekend in our church, and I'm, of course, it's one of the greatest things that we do. It's just amazing, because we know the stories, and I'm sitting there watching the stories, and I'm thinking, I'm watching what was homosexuality now completely set free, burying that dead man and coming up completely different, So, I mean, story after that. What was a drug addiction, now burying that, coming up. What was divorce, on that, burying that, coming up. What was we were living together and we realized we've got to get this right. And so now, now we're right. We're married, burying that, coming up. Yep. I mean, story after story. And then some 75-year-old woman, buried and coming up, and then says to me on her way out the door, it's a brand new life, and so I'm just,
that is awesome.
There's nothing like it, and this is what I think so many people miss out on. When you don't focus on winning lost people, that you miss out on these stories, and honestly, I think the reason a lot of people don't do it is because in order to keep those lost people, you got to disciple them, it can
Gotta get
be
messy with
messy.
it.
Yeah,
so
it gets messy, and so people don't want to get in the trenches, and they don't want to get messy. But I'm telling you, the best thing we ever did was decide to do. Okay, God, we're going to do what you said. We're going to give up our personal preferences. We're going to go a route that most people are not going to expect Terry and I to go.
Right.
And we're going to do this the way you want us to do it. And look what God has done.
Yeah.
I mean, and we're not, I'm telling you right now, I think we're on the verge of one of the greatest breakthroughs that maybe we've ever seen as a church.
Right.
I mean, that's what it feels like to me. I really feel like that we're really, just really close on some stuff that I think God's wanting to do. Yeah. And, so it just never, my point is this, it never has to stop. You never have to reach this place where you feel like I've arrived or, or whatever the case may be. There's always lost people to be won if you'll just focus on them.
Yeah. Kind of final thoughts, maybe a challenge to people that are listening, that are watching, and we've been talking about it, but challenge the new believer, someone who's never suggested Jesus, and challenge the person who's been living for Jesus for 30 years or so, and they haven't fully gone all in yet. To claim Christianity, all the different things, but you haven't stepped into winning the lost. It's not just the job of the pastor, it's the job of the church. Challenge the people that are listening to be like, it's time. It's time to go all in. It's time to step into everything that God has for you to live this best life that we're talking about. Give me a final thought on that to those that are listening, to just encourage them, to push them in the right direction and tell them, don't matter what age you're at, just like the 75-year-old woman who got out and said, I'm just getting started. Man, encourage those people that are listening. Have you guys any final thoughts on that?
I just say it this way. I think the biggest thing that has become a thought for me is whether it's, we joke about college football, but if you like something, take it a step further. If you love something, if you find something that is good, and then heaven forbid you find something that's great. I find something, if we go to a great restaurant, I can't be silent about it. I'm going to come back and tell
100%.
everybody, dude, you got to try this place. Hey, and it can be something as a new ice cream flavor comes out. Dude, have you tried that new Bluebell? It's incredible. You got to try it.
Well, that Celsius drink.
It doesn't matter. It could be anything that you like. Like I said, if you like it, if you love it, if it's good, if you think something's amazing, you can't not talk about it. And so all in for me is that visual representation of getting to a place in your relationship with God where you like him and love him enough that he becomes so good in your life that you go, I can't not talk about it. And not this thing. And I think sometimes we do, and I do think it's an important thing. If you've been a Christian for a long time, you can get to a stale place where maybe you're not talking about him as much. And so I'm not necessarily talking about that. I'm just talking about where not even going up to like a lost person and on the street and telling them, hey, you need to, I just mean as simple as like, hey, I'm around the people I enjoy. Because that's, I don't walk around the street and go, have you tried that new restaurant? You need to do that. I just mean like, you're at work and all of my coworkers here in the office, if I go to a new restaurant, I'm like, dude, y'all got to go try that. It's really good.
Right.
Jesus becomes so real. I get a word from God when I'm reading my Bible in the morning that's so good. I'm like, dude, have you ever read this chapter?
Wow.
It's incredible. You need to know about this. And that's more, I think, the picture. And then that becomes so normal that you will tell somebody you don't know about Jesus.
It's huge.
Yeah, I just think to the new Christian, I think that, start all in, on that side. And what I mean by that, get Christian people around you. Get rid of the environments that, were destroying your life. Get rid of the relationship that were destroying your life. Get around godly people that can pull you toward, the right things. Read your Bible every day. Pray every day. Get in a small group. Go to church. All of those things, so very, very important. And that's really kind of where you start all in, because you really don't, as a new Christian, don't understand all in other than the fact that you are so thankful for God's mercy and grace. And, and I really feel like, and I know this is kind of, it's kind of a challenge, I think, for some people, but if you recently received Christ and you're not just overflowing with thankfulness for God's mercy and grace, then you might need to check your heart, because if you're truly giving your life to Christ, and you understand it's not just some prayer you prayed, you understand what's going on. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I've got a fresh start. I've got this new thing going on. And so tell everybody, tell everybody, just like Rob was saying, tell the people around you. Those are the people that matter. Those are the people in your sphere.
Right.
Those are the people that you influence. And so so begin to live it out, begin to talk to them about what God's, and you're going to receive some persecution. We all do. You're going to have some people make fun of you and tell you how stupid it is and all those kind of things, but you can't let that deter you. In fact, that ought to be the one thing that you understand. Okay, the enemy's trying to use this to pull me away from what I just experienced in God, right? And to the older person that's been a Christian for 25, 30 years, it's never too late.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. That's what I loved about that woman Sunday. It's never too late. Yeah. It's never too late to find Jesus. It's never too late to start new, right? And so it's never too late to go all in. You might have, your tail might have been sitting on a pew for the last 30 years and you've done nothing but attend church and give. And I'm thankful that you've attended church. I'm thankful that you've given. I'm thankful for all of those things, but it's not really brought your best life to you because you never went all in. You've not served, you've not gotten involved, you've not done all these different things, and there is, even at 30, 35 years of Christianity, there's a better life for you, right? And if you have been somebody who's been serving, then go even deeper. Go as much as you can into the kingdom, because you're never ever going to regret investing in the kingdom, right? Because you're building treasure in heaven. You're building, if you will, happiness for the future.
Yeah.
That's what you're doing, and I don't think people realize that, but boy, when you just sit around on your tail all the time and you just attend church and you just come in and I'm not going to question your relationship with God or anything like that, but boy, are you missing a lot when you say, I'm not going to get involved.
Back,
that's not your purpose.
Yeah.
No one's purpose is to come sit and consume. Their purpose is to invest, right?
Yep.
And when you consume, all you're doing is you're consuming what other people are investing.
Yeah.
And that's what you've got to fix, because when you refuse to serve, when all you do is attend church and give, and we're thankful for that, but you won't do anything else, then you're consuming what other people are investing when it comes to serving your kids, serving you, serving anything that's going on in that church. And that's why you just can't be a consumer. You need to be an investor. Because that's where you get your best return. Right?
That's good.
That's where you get your best return.
Wow. Great combos, guys. I love it. It is never too late to say yes to Jesus.
Never too late.
And I feel like that's the biggest piece. You can start right now. Just want to encourage anyone who's listening, if you've never said yes to Jesus, it is an absolutely perfect time to do so. And we want to encourage you, man, reach out to us. We'd love to help you learn more about what that looks like. If you're watching, if you're listening, again, I said it before, but Brent and the boys at EncounterOnline.com, we'd love to talk to you, or DM us on Instagram, all the different things. But man, just incredible. Excited that this was episode 1.
It's awesome.
We got more coming, more just content, more conversations. Again, if you want your hot take answered by,
send us the question.
Brent and the boys, send us the question, drop it in the DMs, comments, all the different things. We love to answer it and talk about all the crazy things happening around here. But we love you guys. Make sure you like, subscribe, all the different things. We will see you next time on Brent and the boys. We out.
Peace.